And today on Showbiz India, it is indeed my pleasure to welcome a familiar face who has been working very hard, Sunil Perkash. It's great to have you on Showbiz India. And Akaash Yadav, it's nice to welcome you on Showbiz India.
Great to be on Showbiz India again, Reshma.
Always a pleasure.
Your movie released, The Last Survivor, and both of you have produced it. You have quite a prolific resume, so to speak. What made you decide on a sci-fi film?
You know what, for me, it's always the thematics that start my interest in a piece of material. Like, Salt was ultimately about a woman trapped in her lies and what those lies did to her when she uncovered them. She had to sacrifice her husband, but save the world. Enchanted is about fairy tale idealism colliding with real world cynicism. For me, this was a movie ultimately centered around somebody who decided that humanity had gone bad and that we, an apocalypse, without giving too many spoilers away, there was an apocalypse and he decided that humanity wasn't worth being a part of anymore. And this was actually pre-pandemic when we developed the script with the writer. And it was really interesting that we ended up shooting it during the pandemic and those themes really resonated.
You good? Yeah. He got a couple of rounds off, but he's a lousy shot.
Akaash, tell me what attracted you to this project.
Well, the sci-fi or thriller aspect, I think, is an additional layer. But at its core, like Sunil said, this is really about relationships, and it's about how people affect each other in isolation, and what people do when they're in love and desperation, and those fundamental issues we really experience all the way through. And the fact that Sunil and I are in different generations, but we both responded similarly to the script, I thought it meant there was something there that's universally translatable.
After the wars, it was very obvious who was prepared and who wasn't. There's those who are prepared for opportunities and setbacks, and those who are not. I feel real lucky to have the dad I do.
You're also an actor. One is a creative role, and the other one is a little bit more business-minded. So how do you mesh the two?
It's hard to wear two hats at the same time, as they say, so I got to go back and forth. That's actually how Sunil and I met. We met on our first film together, Lifelike, and we discussed the possibility of the film. I loved the script, and at the time, I was actually getting my MBA at UCLA, so I was very business-driven while also being a working actor, and I thought this was a really great opportunity to combine both elements. The one before, Spy Intervention, was very acting-heavy for me, so I kind of got strictly producing almost, and then strictly acting. And then for this one, we just combined everything together.
Focus on the future. Outsiders are plague that'll ruin our world. You need to be ready to bury anybody you come across.
He forayed into this entertainment world where not many Indians were in it, so he's a trendsetter.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you decided you wanted to go into the entertainment world, what was your family's reaction?
Kind of the typical, let's be practical, let's think this through. It wasn't that different from every other parent's reaction that you'd expect. But then, meeting up with Sunil and seeing that this has been done and someone's come from that background, even yourself, Reshma, for people to blaze that trail and create content and distribution and really create the footprint you guys have, I think was very inspiring. So it showed me that it can be done.
Sunil, what about you? I know you went through some hard times, I'm sure, as any successful person goes through. So in a short way, can you tell us your journey? What was it like to break it in big Hollywood?
I moved out the day after I graduated from Stanford many years ago, and I got very lucky very early on getting a sense of what a good script was. I had all sorts of ups and downs. I sold my first project to a major studio when I was 24. So I was already in a room with all sorts of, really powerful players. I produced my first movie, ironically, with Alicia Silverstone when I was 27, Blast from the Past. And then it took me almost 6 years before I could figure out how to make a movie again. Every 5 years, Hollywood changes. And it's something no one told me. Again, my parents doctors. I didn't know anybody when I came here. Same with Akaash. We both came here not knowing anybody. And it's a lot of rules in Hollywood that you have to learn. Like, it evolves. Everything you learned 5 years ago, you got to let go of. And then I had a great run with Premonition with Sandra Bullock, Enchanted with Amy Adams, Salt with Angelina Jolie. But then it was hard to get movies made in the early 2010s because everything went to big Marvel movies, Netflix films. And I sort of, in a really fun way, and Akaash and I have made 3 movies, gotten into the independent world. Last Survivors is my 4th independent film, his 3rd. We world premiered the film in London's Leicester Square at a very prestigious festival called Fright Fest. We were one of 9 films chosen. We then went up to Leeds in Northern England and played at their film festival. And for a little tiny movie to kind of explode like this and get this kind of attention and impact is one of the most gratifying things I've ever done.
Dad, you're bleeding.
The antibiotics are too old. I got this. You're gonna be okay, I promise.
Do not underestimate them or you will not make it back here alive.
And Akaash, what do you think is the favorite part of your movie without giving away spoilers, obviously?
That's a tough question. I feel like anything I say is going to be a spoiler at this point.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. I love every interaction between Drew Van Acker's character, Jake, and Alicia Silverstone's character, Henrietta. To see the innocence of Drew's character as he grew up in isolation, with his father after the wars, and to see him interact with another person who is an outsider. And I immediately, when I read the script, I got a sense, but when I saw Drew and Alicia acted out together, I immediately saw my reflection, growing up as a child, saying, how do you immerse yourself in this expansive world for the first time? And it's actually really reminiscent. I mean, Sunil and I talked about coming to Hollywood for the first time, not knowing anybody, figuring out as we go. And I think that itself it's a miniature, but it's definitely a reflection of the character's journey itself.
Like you just said, I think that is something that everyone can resonate with, just like you did. It's the relationship between a son and a father, and the layered relationship, and it's not too different in any world. Sunil, do you want to talk about your relationship with your dad?
I think we all have a coming of age as we start to sort of explore the world on our own versus what we're told. It's very interesting. And obviously, Reshma, you're a parent as well. You tell your daughter all sorts of things, but I'm sure from your side too, you start to see her having her own opinions based on her experiences. That is very universal and fundamental. And yes, especially as immigrant, my parents were immigrants from India. I was 3 when I came. There was a worldview. It's evolved for all of us, but like what Jake goes through in our movie, it's absolutely there are moments where like what you thought you were told isn't necessarily the truth, probably it's an interesting thing because like even I developed the script from early on, when we came from India, there was always a question of like, don't trust anybody you meet in America, which is a little bit, when I watched Last Survivors, a little bit of like Troy's thing about, the outsiders are all bad. I'm like, is this a little bit of my childhood rearing itself here?
Put a bullet between the eyes of any person you see. Man, woman, or child. You see outsiders?
Yeah.
And?
What are you doing here?
Killed him dead.
Do you want to get those clothes dry? You're not a killer.
Akaash, you were mentioning that your parents initially kind of were a little afraid of you getting into, this uncertain world, but did they watch the movie and what did they think?
Yeah, they got it at the level I wanted them to get it. I didn't want to get too much into, hey, this is where I substituted you. And that I don't think that'd be a pleasant conversation to have. But it's they understood the themes. We've been growing together a lot, at least the past 3 or 4 years. And so much of it is, fear-based decision-making. When you love somebody like a child, at what point will you sacrifice their happiness or their autonomy for what you think is safe?
I got the antibiotics and steroids.
anyone see you? No. Nobody saw me. You see outsiders? Yeah. And? I killed him dead.
And speaking of Alicia's character, Sunil, I haven't seen her on screen in a long time. It was a refreshing change, and it was a very different character for her to play.
Absolutely. And in fact, in production, she told us that she studied Shakespeare. She was a trained actress when she was younger, but she got more into a comedy world and other things unlike this. And it was beautiful to watch her so effortlessly become Henrietta. I mean, she's really just so nuanced and real and present. I mean, all three of them are really strong, but it was really interesting to see how strong of a just dramatic, intense character actress Alicia is.
What are you doing here?
I don't know.
Then why don't you just leave?
I'm not afraid to kill you.
What do you want?
You're lucky, Akash, to have Sunil, someone like him as a mentor. And Sunil, I want to talk to you as a mentor to Akash and to many aspirants who would like to break it in Hollywood. What would you say to them?
I would say move to LA or New York, but probably LA, and learn what this culture is and how it works here. It's not like any other business in the world. It's a very inside kind of network of people working in Hollywood. I think the biggest mistake I see young people do is they want to arrive and they want to be huge and successful 5 minutes after they've arrived. Like when you graduate from medical school, you finish your residency, you're a top doctor 6 months later, not here. Like, learn what's going on, learn how what you bring to the table is elevated, differentiated, better than what other people are. Know the marketplace and know it's competitive.
In conclusion, why would you tell people to watch Last Survivor?
I think it's a beautifully written, directed, shot, and acted film. It's really first engaging and entertaining, but it's ultimately about hope in humanity. And I think hope, the end of the movie, without giving too much away, is a very hopeful ending. And I think it's cathartic to experience the journey of Jake and end it with hope. It's a tiny little film. Again, the impact it's having, I was saying to Akash on iTunes, we're so high up the charts, sandwiched between movies that cost 50 to 100 times more than what we cost, and we've competed in the marketplace. So I hope people get to see it and, enjoy it.
You want to tell me what is going on?
I just want the truth, Dad.
You can't trust a one of them.
She lied to me.
Please help!
She needs to die, Jake.
And make sure if you like this video that you do subscribe to us, and we love to hear from you. So tell us your opinion right here. And don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can get notifications whenever we post something new.